I never intended to find out what happened in that house. It wasn't something I went looking for, and honestly, I think that's what still bothers me the most. If I had known what was waiting up there, I would have left it alone. Some things feel buried for a reason, and once you uncover them, they don't stay quiet. My grandmother passed away in the winter, quietly, in her sleep. She'd lived alone in the same house for over 40 years, a narrow two-story place at the edge of town that always smelled faintly of dust and old paper. After the funeral, my family decided to sell it, and since I lived closest, I volunteered to help clean it out. I didn't mind at first. During the day, the house felt empty but harmless, like a shell that had already given up whatever life it once held. It wasn't until I stayed late one night that things started to feel wrong. I was sorting boxes in the upstairs hallway when I noticed the attic hatch in the ceiling. I'd been in that house countless times growing up, but I couldn't remember anyone ever going up there. The ladder was tucked neatly into the ceiling, unused. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled it down, the metal hinges groaning loudly in the quiet house, and climbed up with my phone flashlight in one hand. The attic was smaller than I expected. Low ceiling, slanted walls, thick insulation lining the floor. Most of it was empty except for a single cardboard box pushed into the far corner. No dust on top. That alone felt strange. I opened it and found a stack of old cassette tapes, all labeled in my grandmother's handwriting. Dates. Times. Some had names written on them. Names I didn't recognize. I told myself they were probably old voice memos or family recordings, maybe reminders she'd kept when she was younger. I took one downstairs, found an old tape player buried in a drawer, and pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then I heard my grandmother's voice, younger than I remembered, whispering. She sounded scared. She kept repeating the same sentence over and over, like she was afraid to stop talking. He said not to tell anyone. He said bad things would happen. I sat there, frozen, listening as her voice cracked, as she mentioned a man who came by at night, someone she said no one else could see. Halfway through the tape, there was a noise behind her. Footsteps. Then silence. The tape clicked off abruptly. I sat there long after it ended, my skin prickling. I wanted to believe it was some kind of dramatization, or maybe she'd been recording notes for a story. But the fear in her voice didn't sound fake. It sounded real. Personal. Like she never meant for anyone else to hear it. I should have stopped there. I didn't. I listened to another tape. And then another. Over the course of hours, a pattern started to form. The recording spanned years. Always at night. Always whispered. She talked about being watched. About hearing breathing outside her bedroom door. About things going missing and reappearing in different places. On one tape, she cried while describing a night when she swore someone stood at the foot of her bed, close enough that she could feel the mattress dip. Then I heard something that made my stomach turn cold. On one of the later tapes, she mentioned me. By name. She talked about seeing me standing in the hallway late at night, even though I didn't live there anymore. She said I never spoke. I only watched. I shut the tape off so fast my hand was shaking. I checked the time. It was past midnight. The house was completely silent. Too silent. I suddenly became aware of how alone I was. How old the walls were. How many sounds the house could make that I'd never noticed before. That's when I heard a noise upstairs. Slow footsteps. Moving across the ceiling above me. I didn't go back to the attic after that night. I told my family I couldn't help anymore. The tapes are still up there, in that box, waiting. Sometimes I wonder if my grandmother wasn't recording memories at all, but warnings. And sometimes, when I'm trying to fall asleep, I think about that one thing she said on the very last tape I listened to. If you're hearing this, it means he finally let me stop. If anything like this has ever happened to you, feel free to leave a comment below. I wasn't snooping when I found it. That's the part one keep reminding myself of. I didn't go digging through anyone's personal things, and I didn't break into anything. It came to me by accident, dropped into my lap so casually that I didn't realize what I was looking at until it was already too late to forget. At the time, I worked IT support for a small medical office. Nothing exciting. Mostly password resets, printer issues, forgotten logins. One afternoon, one of the older doctors asked me to help recover some files from his old work laptop before it was wiped. He said there were emails he needed for records, and handed it over like it was no big deal. I plugged it in, started backing things up, and that's when I noticed a folder buried deep in the email archive. No subject lines. No senders. Just dates. Curiosity got the better of me. The emails weren't work-related. They were conversations between the doctor and someone whose address was just a string of numbers and letters. At first, the messages looked harmless. Casual check-ins. Short replies. But as I scrolled, the tone changed. The messages became more frantic. The sender kept asking questions about side effects and how long it takes to forget. The doctor's replies were calm, reassuring, almost detached. He told them memory loss was normal. That confusion was expected. That they needed to trust the process. My chest tightened as I kept reading. The sender started describing things happening in their house. Waking up with bruises they couldn't explain. Hearing voices that didn't sound right. Seeing people they recognized but couldn't place. In one message, they wrote that they felt like parts of their life had been removed, like someone had reached into their head and rearranged things. The doctor replied hours later, telling them not to document anything anymore. He said writing it down would only make things worse. Then I reached the final email. It was sent just 2 days before the laptop was retired. The sender said they were scared because they'd found emails they didn't remember writing. They said they felt watched, even when alone. They asked the doctor if this was supposed to happen. There was no reply. Just silence. I leaned back in my chair, trying to process what I'd just read. My first thought was that this had to be some kind of roleplay or experimental therapy gone wrong. But the timestamps, the details, the way the messages slowly unraveled. It didn't read like fiction. It read like someone losing pieces of themselves in real time. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. One of the email drafts, never sent, had my name typed into it. Just my name. No message. No explanation. I checked the metadata. The draft was created years ago, long before I ever worked there. I told myself it had to be a coincidence. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd seen my name in those emails before. Like it was familiar in a way I couldn't explain. That night, when I got home, I checked my own email. Buried deep in my archive was a folder I didn't remember creating. Inside were drafts. Dozens of them. All unsent. All fragmented thoughts. Mentions of headaches. Missing time. Notes about things I was afraid to forget. The oldest draft was dated over 10 years ago. I stared at the screen, my heart racing, trying to remember writing any of it. I couldn't. And at the bottom of the last draft, just before the cursor blinked in empty space, was a single line. If you're reading this, don't respond. He doesn't like that. I never went back to that job. I never confronted the doctor. And I deleted every draft I found, hoping that would make it stop. But sometimes, when I open my email late at night, I see a new draft waiting there. Empty. Like it's waiting for me to remember what I'm supposed to write. If anything like this has ever happened to you, feel free to leave a comment below. The last thing I ever shared wasn't meant for anyone else to hear, and I think that's what makes this one harder to talk about. It was supposed to stay private, locked away, something I could convince myself wasn't real if no one else knew about it. But once something exists, even quietly, it has a way of making itself known. A few years ago, I lived alone in a small apartment above a closed-down storefront. The place was cheap, quiet, and isolated enough that I rarely saw anyone else in the building. At the time, I was struggling with insomnia. I'd lie awake most nights listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the occasional car passing outside, the building settling. To cope with it, I started recording voice notes on my phone. Nothing dramatic. Just thoughts. Things I didn't want to forget. It helped clear my head. At first, most nights I'd record for a few minutes, then fall asleep. I never listened back to them. They were just there. Until one night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to my phone vibrating on the nightstand. Not ringing. Just vibrating. I picked it up, expecting a notification. Instead, I saw the voice recorder app open, actively recording. I stared at the screen, my heart slowly picking up speed. I hadn't opened the app. I hadn't pressed record. I stopped it immediately and checked the timestamp. The recording had started 12 minutes earlier. My room was dark, silent, exactly the way I'd left it. I told myself I must have rolled onto the phone in my sleep. That explanation didn't feel right, but it was the easiest one to accept. I didn't listen to the recording that night. The next evening, after work, curiosity got the better of me. I put in my earbuds, sat on the edge of my bed, and pressed play. At first, there was only silence. Then I heard my breathing. Slow. Uneven. Like I was asleep. A few seconds later, I heard a faint sound in the background. Footsteps. Soft, careful, moving across the room. I felt my stomach twist. I didn't remember anyone being there. I lived alone. I always locked the door. Then my voice spoke. Not groggy. Not half asleep. Calm. Too calm. You shouldn't be awake, it said. I ripped the earbuds out of my ears and stared at the wall, my mind refusing to catch up with what I'd just heard. I replayed it. Same thing. Same words. Spoken in my voice, but without any emotion behind it. I didn't record any notes the next few nights. I barely slept. Every sound felt louder. Every shadow felt wrong. Then, a few days later, I found another recording on my phone. I didn't remember making it. This one was longer. Nearly 15 minutes. I listened anyway. It started the same way. Breathing. Footsteps. Then my voice again, talking about things I didn't remember experiencing. Describing my apartment in detail. Mentioning objects I hadn't moved. Describing where I was lying, how still I was. At one point, the voice laughed quietly and said, "He's starting to notice." That was when I turned the phone off completely. The next morning, I woke up to a draft email on my laptop. No subject. No recipient. Just text. It described the recordings. It warned whoever was reading not to listen to them. Not to share them. At the bottom of the draft was a line that made my hands shake. If this is still happening, it means I didn't stop it in time. I don't remember writing that email. I don't remember turning my laptop on that night. I moved out a week later, left most of my things behind, and tried to pretend it never happened. I deleted the recordings. Wiped my phone. Started fresh. But every once in a while, when I can't sleep, I'll open my email and see a new draft waiting there. Empty. Untitled. Like something is waiting for me to explain what I already know but can't remember. If anything like this has ever happened to you, feel free to leave a comment below.